What's going on, y'all? It's your boy, I'm Shamar, and this is the Lovers World podcast. I wanted to create something so that you guys could see a different point of view of the project and just to give, I guess, more content. It's super important in these days to create content because content is how you spread your product, spread your wings. And so this is gonna be like a mini series of basically a breakdown of Lover's World. Lover's World is like a universe filled with love, like different aspects of what love might be. Love might be, being a parent. Love might be, being in love. Love might be, you know, loving your career, loving what you're doing. It's just like different things that you love, and passionate about. And I think that's super important to be passionate about things because you just never know, what life will take you. You never know, where life will take you. And that's what Lover's World means to me. When I first started working on this project, first of all, I've been working on this project for a while now. I think that out of all my projects, this project is basically strictly R&B. I've never really had an album that's like strictly R&B. Like I've always ventured into doing hip hop, doing pop. I always got a little distracted with the different genres, but I feel like this project is strictly R&B. And I want you guys to just go on the journey with me. Go on this Lover's World journey with me because Lover's World means so much to me. When I first started this project, I was pretty new in a relationship and unsure where things were gonna go, if things were gonna work out and just a lot going on with my son and a lot going on with my family. So I was really at a unsure part of my life. I wasn't really sure much of anything. But I think what kept me going was the simple fact that I cannot fail. I cannot fail. And I know that a lot of people, they say when you are about to blow up, you go through certain things, you go through certain life situations. And I feel like that's where I was. I was unsure about what was going on in my life, but I feel like I was able to turn something so, beautiful, something so beautiful and meaning to me and really turn it into something even greater, and I really just got in my bag for this project and I really decided to just create something that was musically great, and that was R&B. A lot of people is really sleeping on R&B. A lot of people say, oh, R&B is dead and R&B is not alive. And, R&B is very much alive. You just never know, what's going to take off. But I really feel like R&B is the healing of, a lot of things. A lot of people have been healed from R&B, and I think that that's super important because I grew up on R&B. I grew up on the Keith Sweats, the R. Kellys, the Joes, the Babyface. I've always wanted to show my dedication, my inspiration, my motivation. I've always wanted to pay homage to the people that came before me, and how I do that is just simply keeping the R&B brand alive. I see a lot of R&B artists out there that's really, really doing it, and I'm really proud to say, there's some really dope R&B artists out here, and I feel like, if we could all just support each other, then we could really make something great. I think it's great what Kehlani is doing right now. Kehlani is really making R&B really great again. And shout out to her. I've heard that Folded song so many different places, and it's pretty inspiring. I felt like now was the perfect time for this project because there was a lot that I was going through, and I felt like I needed some R&B healing. You know, I needed to write about love. I needed to hear songs about love. You know, you hear so much rap, so much, you know, so much drill, and some, you know, I needed that outlook. You know, that I needed to hear what got me into music when I first started. You know, when I first started doing music, all I did was R&B. And I just, you know, I would give anything just to feel how I felt when I first got in this music industry, you know, just feeling so much in love with music and feeling so much in love with, you know, like just getting in your bag, being in your bag with, you know, writing, with singing, you know, like it felt so much like a dream and less like, you know, it didn't feel like work, you know? I feel like now there's a lot that goes into like being a music artist, and I'm totally here for it, you know? I'm totally here for everything that you have to do to be this big artist, but like it is a lot, and it's a lot to get your brand out there. And that's something that, you know, I'm realizing now is, you know, there's a lot to take into account for. What does love mean to me? Love means peace. Love means respect. Love means compassion. Love means caring. You know, love means being thoughtful, you know, thinking of who is it that you love, rather it be a significant other, rather it be, you know, your child, rather it be your aunt, your sister, you know, just being thoughtful of that and just knowing that it's a wonderful thing to be thinking of someone and them to be thinking about you, you know. And in my life right now, in my healing life right now, I'm just learning to just let go and just let God. I'm learning to let God and learn to like really just maneuver through this life, you know. There's so much about life to be grateful about, and that's something that, you know, it took me a while to get to. Something that I want people to know and people to understand when they first play this album is definitely play it in order, you know, because I really took in consideration the album tracks. I want listeners to like really appreciate the music, you know, appreciate the R&B, appreciate, you know, what I bring to the table, which is real R&B, you know. And nowadays R&B is like, real R&B is really hard to come by. You know, you have everybody trying to do R&B, and, you know, and a lot of times it is not so great, you know, I gotta say, you know. And I say that real humbly, you know, really humbly. And, you know, but there are definitely some dope artists out there that are really like tearing shit up, you know. Lover's World, that's what that means to me. Lover's World means to me that, you know, all different things, you know, from love, from, you know, life, you know, your family, you know, it means a lot to me. It definitely means a lot to me. So definitely make sure you guys get my new project dropping November 7th. It's called Lover's World. And I want you guys, when you first listen to this album, to just like, you know, get your cocktail, get your little drink, you know, do your little dance, you know, and just have a seat somewhere and just like really listen to the music and just digest it all, you know. I put a lot of hard work into this project, so I want you guys to like really listen to this project with open arms, you know, and that's what's important for me.